it's visible. Right?
Yeah, hello.
Yes.
Yuvraj
Okay.
here, sir. So
It's visible.
can we record this session?
Yes.
Yes, we
Recording
have
is.
already recorded.
Thank
Okay. So uh, good. So we have how many participants we have? It doesn't matter anyways. So 7, 8 people. So what we'll do. So in next 2 to 3 sessions, at a high level, we are going to discuss the topics that I'm showing just now on the screen. So today, in first half an hour or so, we'll just introduce the production planning and detailed scheduling topic. So in that, what we are going to do is to, in order for me to understand a little bit of the background of the participants that we have. So we'll have a quick understanding of how much background all of us have in the production planning area.
Almost
So
20 people.
almost 20 people. Okay. So we'll first understand a little bit of production planning and the audience that we have. Once we do that, then we'll move ahead with the master data related to the production planning PPDS. So most of these are coming from S4. So many of us who have worked on S4 will already know it, but I will just give a perspective of all those master data from a PPDS point of view. So that will be the second part of our training journey. And the third part is, as we see, planning and scheduling. That's where we will go deep into the PPDS and how things are happening, what setup we do, and what are the business outcomes that we achieve by implementing the PPDS. So that's the third part. And then lastly, we'll have a case study. I have written one surgical needle company, but we have other case study as well. So we'll see which one is more effective and we'll cover that. So that's the high level agenda that we have for the next few sessions. So let's start with the introduction. So I guess, as Jay have mentioned already, that we have some of the folks who have APO, IBP background. Then we have some more who are having PP background. Do we have anybody who is different than these two? So either you have a planning background like APO IBP, or you are having a PP background. Do we have anybody else without this background? No. So good. So that's why. So with that said, now we can start today's topics. So to begin with, can somebody tell what is production planning? And then from there, we'll start the discussions. I'm just going to open my PPT in the meantime. So what is production planning?
It is a part of logistics that deals with the manufacturing aspects.
Manufacturing aspects. Okay, good. Anybody else?
And of course, planning. I missed it.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, it is meant to meet our customer demand, and that's on time, and we should properly utilize our resources.
Okay, good. So, so I've started my PPT, and now we are going to go a little bit into deep and understand. So as we talk, there are two parts to this: production and planning. So production is the part where all the manufacturing activities happens, and then the second part is planning. We'll keep on stressing on the fact that there are few words, jargons that we will try to understand, which we frequently use in planning. So what is planning? So planning is basically about looking into future and understanding what actions we need to take now so that we are able to execute better in future. Okay, so whenever you do execution, that is about now, near future, but planning is all about also about near future and then far future. So production planning essentially is the topic that deals with the future plan of what we are going to produce, how we are going to produce, and all that. So that's our production planning. And then associated topic is detailed scheduling, which we'll just define for now, and then we'll talk about it in detail in later. So what is detailed scheduling, or for that matter, what is scheduling? Can somebody try to explain what is scheduling? Okay, scheduling is about when you create a planned order or a production order, we will have to execute the operations on certain machines or work centers. So we will need to decide that within a day at what time we are going to use on a particular work center. So when we decide that, which that particular time in which we are going to use and utilize that work center for this production order, that is called scheduling. Okay, so high level business context is that I just so these are all standard things, but I've just underscored one sentence that when you use PPDS, what extra and what different that we do from PP, the traditional PP that we have been talking, that we know is that in PPDS, we have the ability to consider the resources and components availability. So resource availability means your capacities. So how much capacity our work center has, that we can take into account, and then also what is the status of my components that are needed to produce my finished product. So these two things we consider when we create a plan. Means when we create a planned order, we do see that whether the component is available or not, and the corresponding work centers are having the capacity or not. So that's the major difference, which is different than the normal MRP, etc. that we have been doing. Okay, so we'll go to the next. Very high level. This is a PPDS process flow. Obviously, we are going to go into detail of each of these boxes, but just to set the context that what happens end to end in a PPDS. So this is a good representation of that. So maintenance of master data. We all know, being SAP consultants, that we need to maintain the master data so that the PPDS works, and that happens for PPM and everything. Then maintenance of PPDS settings. We'll see what are those technical settings in the system that we need to do. And then transfer of the requirements receipts to PPDS. Now, technically, while PPDS exists in S4HANA itself, it's different within the same box. Okay, so many of us will know that PPDS traditionally has been part of APO, and APO was a different module altogether, which was outside of ECC. Now, when S4HANA came, all the ECC features has gone to S4, and then PPDS and GATP portion of APO has migrated to S4. While this has happened, they still coexist in the same database. So, which means S4HANA is a big umbrella within which we have PPDS. But in order to run the PPDS within S4HANA, we still need the live cache to be installed. So these are some technical things which our basis consultants will do. But for us as a PPDS consultant, we still need to understand that there is an interaction happens between S4 database and PPDS database, and PPDS database has live cache. That's the different memory within S4HANA that PPDS uses. So that's why within S4 they will interact between each other, and hence we use this term called transfer of requirements. So from the S4HANA database, all the sales orders, all the existing stock, etc., has to be transferred to PPDS live cache. Live cache is also one type of memory or database, but that transfer needs to happen. So that's this step, which is where we transfer all this transaction data to PPDS, and then PPDS can run. So that's
Sorry,
that.
Pankaj, just one question here.
Yeah.
So basically, so when we say that the PPDS and in HANA is hosted in HANA database, live cache is also existing along with that, right?
Live cache is also hosted on the HANA database, but it's a different memory box. That's how you can see. And as we move ahead, I will show you the SAP notes that explains us that how to install live cache on S4HANA. So while that is a basis activity, but when we go into the project, many a times people, even the basis folks, don't know that they need to install live cache in order for us to run PPDS within S4HANA.
Anyway, because I was checking with the PPDS box in our HANA, IDE system, I got an error, hard error, saying that the secondary database connection doesn't exist, LCA.
Yeah,
So
that's the live
that's
cache.
obviously the live cache is missing, right?
Correct, correct, correct.
Okay.
But I think we do have one system
Yeah,
where
we do.
yeah. So
Okay.
we have a system where live cache is there. So Jay will
I will
show
check.
us that system.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
But yeah, so as a functional consultant, we need to be very clear that we within S4 HANA, we need to install live cache for PPDS to work. Unless and until that happens, it will not work. Okay. Then the next step in the process is about automatic production planning, which is where our planned orders are created. So that's an area which we are going to go into a lot of detail. So that's the second, that's this part. And then once planned orders are generated, then planners will come into the system. So there are few interfaces, product view, product planning table, detailed scheduling board. So all these things are there where we look at the automatically created planned orders, and then planners can make adjustment changes, etc. And even they can generate new production plan if they want to. So that's our interactive planning. So usually there is a batch job that runs overnight, and then when during the day planners comes and looks at the proposed PO, production orders of planned orders, then he can choose to run another interactive planning run as well. So that's also possible. Once all these things are done and he is very happy with the planned order that he sees in the system in PPDS, then he will have to then the planner will have to send it to S4 HANA database, because that is where the execution can happen. So we need to convert that planned order into production order or a process order. So that's what for that to happen, we'll have to transfer these planned orders to S4 HANA database. So in MD04, you will be able to see once the transfer happens. Till the transfer happens, we will not be able to see this in MD04. But usually, and we'll talk about the SIF as well, usually they are always connected. So moment these plant orders are created or changed, they immediately go to S4 HANA and you can see in the MD04. So that's the setup that we control. Is it immediate or periodic and all that? And then once plant order is there, then you convert into production order, uh, release it, confirm it, do GR, and then you have stock on hand. So high level, this is the PPDS flow. Now within this, you see there is an exception-based management, which is what we call as alerts. So that's different than the exceptions that we see in MD04 in MRP. So that traffic light of MRP is different and this exception is different. So we have an alert monitor, which we'll also, if time permits, we'll see. And then we can perform some simulation. So within PPDS, we not always need to work in the live model, and we'll understand what is a model, but you can have uh, simulation versions, simulation models in which you can perform certain things. And if you find that result is good, then you can bring that result to the live model and then go for the execution. So we'll talk about these as well. So on a high level, at a high level, this is how the PPDS flow happens. Anybody has any question?
So, sorry, this lot size you're talking about is taken from the PPS master data.
Yes.
Let us say it is a EX in
Yes.
ECC or S for HANA. So
Correct.
there can be another lot size in PPDS.
Yes.
So which one will be taken into account in the run?
No, so yeah, so there are multiple fields in PPDS. Few are coming from S4HANA and few are PPDS specific that only exist in PPDS. Lot size especially being a field that comes from S4, and hence whatever we maintain in S4, that will come across to PPDS master data. So, so always if it is EX in our MM02, it has to be EX in our product master in a PPDS. Okay, so with that, we'll move ahead. This slide is, as I spoke earlier, is going to explain to us little bit of the technical things which we are not supposed to understand in more detail. Okay, but just because being a PPDS consultant, we should have a bare minimum understanding of what it means. Okay, so first, as I mentioned, this is the SAP note which talks about how to manually install live cache in S4 HANA. So there is a detailed steps, etc. is already given as to what is to be done. For us, two things are important to understand. One, S4HANA needs to have a different live cache installation. And second, if I have a basis person in my team, being a consultant, I can tell him that there is a node that exists. So he can now go through these nodes and then follow the steps and then install the live cache. So for us as a consultant, PPDS consultant, this much of information is enough regarding manual installation of live cache. The second part is about SIF setup. So as I said, because we have two different databases, one is S4 database, one is the live cache for PPDS. So the transfer of master data and transaction data needs to happen. So whatever master data, so material master, production versions, work centers that we have defined to support our PP process in S4 HANA, those needs to go across, and we'll go into details of what all master data is needed, but those need to go across to PPDS live cache. For that to happen, we need to set up the SIF. SIF is a process. It is called code interface. So it's a process by which we are able to transfer all the master data required for PPDS from S4 HANA database to our live cache. So that's one. And second is the transaction data. So stocks, existing production orders, any manual reservations, etc. So all these things also needs to go across between the two environments. So all those interactions between HANA database and live cache needs to happen via SIF. And we have this SAP note that talks about how to set up the SIF. Okay. We'll go into a little bit detail and we'll see that in the system, as Jay has already done that. In the subsequent slides, we'll talk about that. So that's the second one. And I've also kept those notes over here. So after the call, we'll just send across the PPT and then you can take a look. And the third one is more about the implementation recommendations. So this third SAP note is more relevant for us as a PPDS consultant, and it talks about what are the restrictions and what are the recommended way to do the PPDS implementation. So these are the three SAP notes that we as a PPDS consultant, not the first one, but second and third one is certainly more relevant to us. Okay. So we'll move and then we'll start with the master data introduction. Before I do this, anybody has any question? And how we're going to do this portion is that we'll talk about this slide, Jay, and then maybe we'll take a look at the system one by one. Okay. All right. So in the master data part, obviously in S4 HANA, we have all these modules, PP, MM, SD and all that. And in order to support all those modules, we have so many master data. But out of all those master data, some of those which are relevant for us to be used in PPDS are these. So plants, and as you can see, storage locations, distribution centers, production plants. So all those vendors and customers. So these three entities, not three, these are the entities which when we sift across to PPDS, they are called as location. So all of them create a master data in PPDS, which is known as location. And then there is something called location type in PPDS, by which we can understand that a particular location is of type vendor or that is of type DC. So within the master data called location in PPDS, we also have a location type by which we can still differentiate that a particular location is a production plant or a distribution center or a supplier. Okay, so that ways we do this. How do we create location, or how do we send across location to PPDS? So there is a process. I think this is a report, or there is a SIF process by which we can do that. Do you want to see that right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So Jay is going to now share the screen, and then we'll see how the location is created.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, yes, yes.
So for storage location, we can see that the transaction. So all the transaction related to PPDS, you can see the /SAP APO and the transaction name. So if you see the master data location, transaction is /SAP APO LOC3. Here we can see all the master data. So we have created master data plant as a location. Okay, 1710 is a plant as a location. Here you can see the type of location. So the production plant, distribution center, shipping point. So these are the different types of location we can create. So the first one we created as a plant as a location. So these are the general views of the plant. You can see the geographical data, identifier, the external storage location. That means the plant. Okay. Then address of that location. So it comes from the plant, or whatever we plant created in ECC. So when we transfer the plant to PPDS location, all the data are transferred to PPDS.
So Jay, can you just drill down on the location type? Sorry.
Okay, resources. So we can maintain here.
Jay, can we try CFM1? This transaction CFM1.
Sorry, Jay, I just wanted to look on the drill down for the location types.
Yeah. So yeah. So this is one transaction, CFM1, which is related to SIF. So whenever we want to transfer the plant first time from S4HANA to PPDS, this is where we need to come, and these are the settings which has to be already present. And how does these settings, so model name, logical system, and APU application, how do we get all these options available here is via that SAP node that I talked earlier. So there was a SAP node that was talking about setting up the SIF and some of the PPDS implementation recommendations. So when we go through those SAP nodes, we will understand how to create a model name and all that. So logical system. So all these technical steps is one-time step, which we can refer to that SAP nodes, and by that we'll be able to create this. Okay. So step one is Lifecast installation, that obviously the basis person will do. The second step is about setting up the SIF in which we'll create all these things, and that SAP note has given us. So as a PPDS consultant, we can do that. Once these things are there in place, then we can come to this transaction CFM1, and then we can choose what do we want to send. So I want to send the plant. And if there are multiple plants, we can select how many plants. But if we want to send only one plant, for example, right now 1710, so we can choose this 1710. So in this way, we create an integration model. So when we click on generate, so it actually creates an envelope in which it has put one plant from S4, and then this envelope will be sent across to PPDS. So first step is about creating the integration model. So it's created. So I'll just say generate IO. Okay. So it's created, and then as a second step, which is /n, what was the name of that? PPDS S4 is the name. Okay, and the second step is /n CFM2. Yeah. So we will, and so it was created. This is keeping, so the new status, it has, I'll just click on detail. So now this integration model, which we are going to send across, has one plant. Okay, so that is this plant 1710. Okay, so then we say the new status is we want to send it, and then we select this line and then start. What happens now that I send say start, then it is sending it across. So then this plant is now going across to PPDS. So this is two-step process. One is CFM1. Let's see the malloc. So it has gone. All our green means that has gone. So during SIF, we do two steps. One is CFM1, which is about creating the integration model in which we select the entities or the data that we want to send across. And step 2 is CFM2, by which we are actually pushing it across to PPDS. Once we do this, then our plant has gone across to PPDS, and now there is a bridge already established. So just in this case, there is nothing coming back from PPDS to S4 per se, but this channel is now established. It's open. So this interaction is going to. So any change that we go do in this plant, and if that change is relevant to PPDS, then we will be able to immediately see that in PPDS. For example, if you change the description of this plant, it will just reflect to PPDS. Okay. Anybody has any question on this plant?
Sorry, Pankaj, again, this is what we used to do it. Sorry.
Let me share my screen.
So whenever a changes happens in HANA, it automatically gets syncs into PPDS server, right?
Please come back. What was the question?
If there is any changes in the plant in HANA, so it, after setting up this CFM2, it automatically syncs with PPDS server.
Correct. So now with after CFM2.
Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, nice. Yeah, so after we do this CFM2 thing, then our bridge, and now our bridge is working, which means now both the systems are connected for this one entity. So for 1710 plant, S4HANA and PPDS are connected, and any change, and in case of master data, it is always one-way traffic. So always S4HANA is sending the information from S4 to PPDS. Any change that we make in PPDS does not go back. So in case of master, it is one way. So any change that we make in plant master data, which is relevant for PPDS, that change will come across to PPDS automatically. And one of the example is plant description. So if you make the change in plant description, it will immediately comes across to PPDS and update that plant description. Okay.
Yeah, Pankaj, one more question here.
Yes.
My understanding basically was when you have an integrated PPDS, there should not be any reason to transfer the data that has already been created. Why we do another SIF here?
Yeah, because PPDS works on live cache, which is a different database compared to the S4HANA database. So that's why we spoke earlier also. So even within within S4HANA, PPDS will not work until and unless we install the live cache component. Okay, so it's a different memory system which PPDS uses. So that's the reason why we need to transfer the master data and even the transaction data to live cache, and for that we are doing this SIF.
Because I remember reading somewhere, some OSS note or somewhere that some of the objects are not needed. I mean, not all of them are to be transferred to PPDS.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. So transfer is only going to happen for plant, and also if I think if this group is ready, even this location we can choose to manually create in PPDS.
Correct.
So one of the ways to transfer it, and if you don't, because we normally don't change locations, so we can also choose to manually create this location if we don't want to do the transfer. So that's also possible. And rest of the master data, which we are going to talk about, we are not going to do transfer. It is not required. Okay, so only the transfer, if we want, is to be done for location. Otherwise, not needed. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So next one, is what we are going to talk about is material master. Now, material master, we know MM01, 02, 03. That's what we do in S4. What we have got here in S4 is there is a tick called advanced planning. So in order to again transfer, so we don't need to do CFM1 and CFM2 for this material. There is a tick that already SAP has provided us. If we use that tick called advanced planning, and we'll see that Jay will show us in few moments from now. So if we do that tick in material master, automatically my material master goes across, it gets transferred to PPDS live cache. So it is still getting transferred, but just that the process is not via CFM1 and 2. There is just one tick that ensures that it gets transferred. Okay, so that's material master. Now also in terms of what we call this material master in PPDS is product master. So as a PPDS consultant, we also need to kind of be aware of the jargons that we use in PPDS. So material masters are to be called as product master. And we have transactions in PPDS where we look at the product master data. We'll see, Jay will show us that as well. Before we go into the system and look at all these one by one, I just want to complete this slide and then we'll go to the system and we'll look at all this. So once material master goes across, then the next one is production version. Many of us being from the PP background, I hope we understand a production version is nothing but a combination of BOM and routing. BOM has the details of the components and the ratio in which those are required to produce the finished product. So that's our bill of material. And then the routing is the master data in which we maintain what are the operations that we need to perform on various work centers in order to finally produce my finished product. Okay, so that's our BOM and routing. And then production version is also master data that we create within S4, which is a combination of BOM and routing. So these production versions are also sent across to PPDS, and then they create a new master data in PPDS, which is called PDS. Okay, product data structure. Now we'll go into the details of this PDS and we'll try to map which field of PDS is kind of coming from which field of BOM or routing in S4. But it's the most important master data in the PPDS planning process. So again, how it goes to PPDS is by running a report. So that's not CFM1 and CFM2 as such, but there is another transaction that we'll see via which these production versions are going across to PPDS, and then that creates the PDS. Okay, but even though there are different methods by which we are sending these data from S4 HANA to live cache for PPDS, the methods and approaches can be different for these different entities, but what we need to keep in mind is that we always need to send it across because these are two different databases. So we need to send it across to live cache. The processes and the methods to send it across can be different. Okay. Next one is about work center. Again, work centers are important master data, and then there is a checkbox of advanced planning. We'll go into the details of work center and we'll see that checkbox. So the work centers are going to go across to PPDS and they're then called as resources. And then there is a mapping which we need to go into detail and we'll understand that. And then there are few more which is not much relevant for us what we'll talk about. So scheduling agreements, contracts and purchasing for records can also be sent across, and then they create transportation lanes, extended procurement relationship in PPDS, which we are not going to use much in our discussions in next few days. Okay, now the second part is about transaction data interaction. We want.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to know if we have set up a subcontracting operation in routing, does it also transfers to PPDS?
Yes.
Okay, it does. Okay.
Yes, it does. So that's a special case. I don't know we will have time, but if we have time, we will cover that. Subcontracting process is supported in PPDS, and all the master data that we have in S4 can go across to PPDS and we can use that. Okay.
So the APO PPM is same as the PDS in now the HANA PPDS.
APO PPDS is same as HANA.
Sorry, APO PPM. PPM.
APO PPM. Okay.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
is same as our PDS what we are using here.
correct. So within APO itself, we had these two options, PPM and PDS. So over the time, what SAP did was they slowly discarded the use of PPM and they recommended the use of PDS. So both of these master data within APO had the same information, which is BOM plus routing. And now that PPDS has been part of S4 HANA. So it only talks. So we only talk about PDS as PPM was anyways discarded within APO itself. So no more PPM. But as such, the information that we have in PDS is similar to what we had.
Similar, yeah. Okay.
Okay, so yeah, before going to before going to the transaction data part, let's take a look at these master data with Jay, and then we'll go to the transaction. Okay. I'm going to unshare the screen. Yeah.
Okay. So
So we can do this way. So we can do this way. We first show MM02 and then show the
So here you can see the path to see the master data in logistic. Here you can see the advanced planning. Okay. In advanced planning, we have all the data like master data, location, product view, resource, calendar, everything we can see under the advanced planning. Okay. First of all, we will see the material master where we can have the views of advanced plan. If we go to MM03, here we can see one views advanced planning, which is in S4 HANA system. Okay. Enter the plant. So this tick means this material belongs to advanced planning. Okay. So here you can see this tick. If you select this tick, this material is comes under the advanced planning, where we can see all the different fields. The basic we need planning explosion, and then heuristic. Heuristic Pankaj will discuss in subsequent session what are the different what are the heuristic and what type of what are the different heuristic we have in PPDS. Okay. And then the planning strategy. It comes from the ECC planning strategy. You see the planning strategy 40 in ECC, which is the same 20 in S4 embedded PPDS.
Can you go to MRP1?
Yeah.
Yeah. So within this MRP 1, 2, 3, and 4, these are the four basic tabs where we really maintain the data or the information related to the planning process. Okay, so even our MRP run within S4 also refers to these tabs. Now, you see one of the important field in our material master is being MRP type. So if we make it as X0, then whenever we run MRP within our S4 system, this material will be excluded. So with the maintenance of X0, we are ensuring that this material does not get planned by our S4 MRP run. But it does not ensure that its planning is automatically happening by PPDS. So within PPDS, in order to include this material, we will have to do some more selection criteria somewhere. But with this XO, we certainly tell S4 that MRP does not do the planning for this material. That is one of the important aspect. Second one in this MRP is, I think we kind of touched upon this part, is lot sizing procedure. Obviously, it is going to impact on how the planned orders are created and the quantities, but this is one of the field that we maintain in MRP1, and then this field is going to go over in the product master of PPDS, and then this will govern how the lot sizing happens there. So now I think what we'll do as a next step is in one of the sessions we look at the product master for the same material, and then maybe okay, let me. So we'll just open the product master. So yeah, there is a, I think already. So product master is mat1. So we will find it out somewhere. It's it's there in the tree, so you'll find out. Mat1 is the product master. Okay. Now the product was, this was the product. Three was the product. Location was 1710. So click on display. So it is created by change by nothing is coming up. Otherwise, so what happens is when we do a tick here, advanced planning, and save it in our S4, then only we will be able to see this mat1. We will find this product in mat1. So that tick essentially sends across this material master to PPDS live cache. This is the view from live cache, and then we are able to see this master data. And one of the field that we'll observe is going to be lot size. So let me see, this is the lot size. So this here we call it lot for lot. So if we maintain EX there, then we see lot for lot. And for just for our purpose right now, understanding, we will go back to our material master, and can we change? Let's change it to just the lot size. FX. Okay, let's do EX only.
Yeah.
Okay, fix. Let's go to product master. Yeah, nice. So we can see that we made the changes in fixed lot sizing procedure in our MM02, and then we immediately see that got reflected in our product master here. So what this means is within the product master in PPDS, we have various fields, and some of the fields are driven from S4, and lot size being one of those fields. But then there are few fields which are specific to PPDS. For example, this heuristic field. So anything that we want to make the change about my heuristic, I will have to do this here itself. So right now it is PP002. I can make it, let's say PP04. Okay. Change mode. Okay. I think is a, this is also driven from there. In advanced planning, yeah, correct. So looks like this is also a field that we have got in S4 advanced planning. Right. So I think even this field has to be maintained from here. So let's go back there. I made it 4. Okay, 4. Yeah. So I think we just need to carefully see which are the fields that we have to maintain in S4, and there is a list, and that's available. Okay, I will also go through one of the PDF in which we are going to see all these fields, and then there are few which are only in PPDS, and one of them I'll just talk about is the pegging settings. So pegging is the concept which we are going to talk about a little bit in detail, but anything that is related to pegging, because pegging does not exist in S4HANA. So all the concepts remains within PPDS, and then all the settings that are going to impact our pegging process is all maintained over here. So those things will, I will go change product.
Heuristics also will be covered later. Am I audible?
We will have to see if there is some issue with our, we call it authorization. Authorization will, because this production planner, etc., is all PPDS specific field, but we are not able to make changes. That means maybe some authorization issue will be there. But I think largely we understand now that some of the fields within within product master of PPDS will come from S4, and some fields are PPDS specific, which we maintain here. Similar to this, we will see the work center now. So CR.
Just a small question. We will be covering heuristics later.
Yeah. Right. So now within this work center, we look at this tick. We call this tick is known as advanced planning. So when we tick this and then click on save, this work center goes across to PPDS, and there is a naming convention that automatically PPDS follows. So this particular work center will be known as W_WZWC1. So there is a W prefix that gets added whenever this work center goes across to PPDS. And then these work centers are known as resources over there. Okay. So we are going to look at this particular work center in PPDS, and we'll also try to, similar to what we did in material master, we look at one or two fields there and then observe the changes in PPDS. Similarly, in this work center, we will check this work center in PPDS, and then we'll look at few fields and then we'll observe the changes there. Okay.
So the material master and hello, can you hear me? Hello. I think some problem.
Advanced planning, the master data. In master data, we can see the resource. In PPDS for work center, we call as a resource. So this is the transaction RES1 for resource. We will see all the resource which comes across 1710 location, then planning version 00. This one.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. So now we'll just understand few of the fields across this work center, and then we have the resource over here. Okay. So as you see, there are multiple fields in the resource master, and as a PPDS person, consultant, we should try to understand what is the meaning of all those fields, and which you can do later. But in this discussion, we are going to look at a few of them, and let's start from capacities. Okay. So in this, you see the capacity has two formulas: setup formula, processing formula, and then within the header, capacity header, we will see that we have 24 hours a day, and then number of individual capacity is 1. Okay. And then we have relevant for finite scheduling, can be used. So all this setup is there. And then there is a APO resource tab here. In this tab, there is a setting that calls this resource type. When it goes across to PPDS, it will create a single activity resource with the type of production category. Okay. So all this setup that we maintain in work center within S4 goes across to the resource master, and then it populates various fields. Now, what are the meaning of these fields? Some of these we will learn in the subsequent sessions, and some of these we will try to see if you can learn yourself, because if we go into each field details, then it will take lot of time. But all the major and important fields we'll talk through so that we understand how PPDS works. These are the fields that are going to impact the PPDS result. Okay, so now that we have seen some of these fields here, let's go back to our resource master, which is this. And then, so first of all, resource category, P, production. Okay, so from where it is coming? It is coming from this APO resource. And then we see this resource category is production. So this is how this gets transferred. Secondly, there are multiple tabs here, single resource, multi-resource, production line, etc. So when this transfer happened, it automatically comes to multi-resource. Why? Because we have said here, no, this is single activity.
Can we elaborate on resource?
So we'll
type?
check why it is showing in multi.
Am I audible?
Multi. Was that multi earlier and then now it has been changed to?
No, I
Am I
don't think
audible?
we are.
Did not happen.
No, no,
We'll see that.
you are audible to us
But
actually.
these are the
Single.
fields.
It is showing
These are
single
the setup
next.
that based on which it goes across from S4 HANA database to PPDS live cache, and then we can see the details
We
here.
are audible to each
Now,
other, but
going
not
to
to
the
him.
next one.
Okay.
Bucket duration is
Then we
one.
won't be able to raise query.
Breakdown, sorry, breakdown is one. So this is, I think, is this also coming from there? Okay.
Hi Pankaj, it is showing single mixed. If you go to the single
Breakdown
tab,
duration is one.
it is showing that
Capacity is
resource.
4. But
No, you won't be
still,
able to
I'm
hear.
seeing a
You
difference
won't be able
because
to hear.
the
I don't know
start
why.
date and end date. Yeah, something has changed. So maybe it has not come across. So these are the start time and end time in work center, which will reflect in the start time and end time here. Now we will see why it is not matching right now, but otherwise,
Now, if you
in
click
normal
on
scenarios,
single tab, it is showing
these are the
single
fields which will
mixed.
match.
You are
Then
clicking
capacity
on
utilization
multi,
100.
that's why.
Okay, so this utilization rate is 100, and if we have more number of individual capacity, that will also get reflected here. Okay, so all those setup that we maintain in work center there will cross over to PPDS, and it will show us in these buckets, in these fields. Now you see there are few. There are different resources. Okay. So that is just scroll down. Scroll down. Okay. Okay, you can. Taking different. Okay. Yeah, right. Good catch, Jay. Okay, so we were actually looking at a different resource. So how did we know that that was a different resource? Because you see now the name of this resource is WZ WC1, which is what we have actually seen in the S4. So this is this resource, and now we can see it is matching. So start time being 0, end time being 24 hours, utilization rate is 100, and then number of individual capacity is 1 here and 1 here. Now, if we try to change it and make the number of individual capacity as 2, okay, so let's see what happens to that. So let's make it to 2, and also start time within a day. Let's make it to 8 hours. So it starts at 8 hours, and we have individual capacity as 2. The moment we do this, come out, and then just to avoid confusion, we'll just select that resource, which is this one. Right. So we can see the start time has now become 8, and then number of individual capacity has become 2, and hence we have 16 hours productive time within a day. So why is okay? 24 minus 8 is the 16 hour, and then 16 to 2, 32 hours in total we'll have for this particular resource. We'll take a pause. Is there any question with anyone?
Yes. Are we audible to you?
Okay, very nice. So no question. So as we see,
No, we have questions.
that we have a product
Okay, they are
master,
not
we have a
listening.
material master
Maybe some
data
issue with
in
that.
S4,
Hello?
when we make a advanced planning tick,
Yes, sir.
it
Can you call him?
transfers
I'm not audible.
from
If you
S4
have
database
Jay
to
sir's
PPDS.
number, you can just
In
call him
PPDS, it
and
becomes
let him know.
product master data,
You
and
can
then
type in
some
the
of the
chat box.
fields of product master is coming from S4, and some of them are PPDS specific, which we maintain. Similarly, we have work center, which with advanced planning tick, it gets transferred from S4 to PPDS live cache, and we see that here as resource master. And again, similar to that, similar to the product master, we have few fields which are directly coming from there, and then some fields which we maintain directly in PPDS. So some of those fields are, if I do reference resource, and then so there are few fields downtime we maintain directly. We can maintain directly in PPDS. So breakdown time was different, which is coming from there, but downtime we can maintain here. So similar to that, we have these resource master. Now the last one was last one we are going to talk about is the production version.
Just a minute, they are not audible. Just a minute. Something.
Sir, आवाज आ रही है हमारी?
Hello, yeah. Now we can hear you.
Yeah, we
Okay.
were questioning him. We had
Actually, people were asking you some questions, but they were not
Okay,
audible.
so at least you were able to hear us.
we were able
Okay,
to.
that's good.
That was
Okay.
one way. Yeah.
Sorry, it became one-way master data transfer. Okay, go ahead. Ask your questions.
Sir, can you explain a little bit about resource type?
Resource type.
Yeah.
Okay. Resource type. Where is that resource type?
In work center, APO setting.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, it's here. Yeah. Resource type.
Yeah.
Okay. Without going too much, but just at a high level, multi-activity resource are those resources which can perform multiple things at the same time. So you imagine being a robot. So I define the entire robot as one work center. Okay. And then robot has two arms. So one arm can do a drilling task, and second arm can do a packaging task. Because it's a robot, I can program it to perform two different tasks, two different activity at the same time. So if my work center, which I have defined right now, has the capability to perform multiple activity at the same time, then we define that as a multi-activity resource. But if it is other way, it can do only one thing at a one time, then it is single activity resource.
And
is that fine?
Single mixed resource?
Single mixed. Single mixed is about, this is a little different. It is not used in PPDS. In those days when we had APO, we used to use this single mixed. It is about the bucketing of time in which we use this resource. I'm also not very clear right now as to, okay, let me do a F1. F1. Okay, it has, yeah. So it has little bit to do about the time bucket in which these resources are going to work. So in case of SNP, the supply planning module of APO, we were creating these as multi-mixed or single mixed, in which we were working in a daily bucket or within a weekly bucket. So these multi-mixed or single mixed resources were created only to support the supply planning process of SNP. It's because I don't recollect that clearly, so I think I'll not go much into detail, but the texts are there. If you do a Google, you'll find out what is multi-mixed and what is single mixed. But for us to understand the PPDS portion of it, single activity and multi-activity are the resource types that we use in PPDS. And at a high level, as I said, if we have work centers which can perform two activity at the same time, then we define them as the multi-activity, or otherwise it is single activity. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Any other question? Anybody?
Yeah, I think in PPDS resources, the capacity is always I mean, and this scheduling is always finite. Am I correct? It cannot be
Scheduling
infinite.
is, yeah. So if we want to run PPDS on this works, I mean, if we want to do capacity planning, which we want to do, which is why we want to do PPDS, then we will have to check this box here. And then only this work center will go across and then create the resource master. Obviously,
No.
once
My basic no. Sorry. I think my question was different. So
okay.
PPDS has been designed exclusively to cater to the needs of the finite scheduling, not infinite scheduling, as in SAP.
Not necessarily. We have the setup by which we can tell PPDS not to consider my capacity, or when it is considering the capacity, I maintain such a big capacity that it becomes infinite. So for example, if I make number of individual capacity here as let's say 999, right? So it has become such a big capacity. So even though so PPDS is considering the capacity, but it is such a big number that it is behaving as infinitely. So what you're saying is right, that PPDS is designed to consider capacity during the planning run, but we can still perform infinite capacity planning using PPDS.
Okay, but ideally we should it should be finite.
Correct.
My understanding.
Correct. That's where I said, if we want to do infinite planning, then why to go to PPDS? So most of the cases we do finite planning, finite capacity planning using and detailed scheduling using PPDS, because that is the purpose because of which we are implementing PPDS. So normally we do capacity planning there.
Right, understood. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So then let's go to the third one, which is our production version. The production version. Yeah. So in one of the sessions, let's open the routing as well. Just the routing. So right now we'll talk about S4 part. Then we'll look at. Okay. Thank you, sir. So so I think most of us really know what is the production version. So this is the production version 0001 that was created for the example product that we are seeing here. In this production version, there are some fields which are going to go across, and we will see those fields in our PDS master data. And then within this production version, we have this routing, and then we have the alternative BOM. So all these details are there, and they will transfer across to PPDS, and we'll see those details in the PDS of PPDS. Then let's take a look at the routing itself. Okay. So that we are able to compare this routing and the information that we find in PDS of the PPDS. So as we see, we have this routing in which we have these two operations. So 10 and 20 are two operations. 10 is being executed on C1 and then 20 is C2. So before we want to transfer this production version to PPDS, the prerequisite is that our work center should be already existing. So in the order of transfer, the work center should go first, and then our this one production version should go. Then this control key, etc. I think because we have PP background, so we all understand the details within control key, which is where also whether it is a scheduling relevant or not, the control key determines those things. So those setups are there. And then the important thing along with this is the base quantity and the timings here. Okay, so we'll focus on these two timings. So one is the setup. So what it says is that for the one quantity of our FG, we will, so this is where is the base quantity. So for one piece of FG, we need to perform this operation 10, in the work center that was C1, and then on that work center we will need a setup time of 30 minutes and then a machining time of 20 minutes. Between this setup and machining, setup is fixed and machining is quantity dependent. Okay, what I said, fixed and quantity dependent, is determined not from this routing, but from the setup that we have this within this work center. I am going to go there because that is important for us to understand, because that is what is being used in PPDS for during the plan. So I come to this work center, and within this capacity tab, we have this formula. So this setup formula is setup time into operation. There is no split. So it's just equal to setup time, which means 30 minutes. So whenever a planned order will be created for that FG, whenever that operation 10 will be scheduled on that work center, my planned order is going to take 30 minutes irrespective of the planned order quantity, because there is no quantity here. But in the machining or the processing formula, we'll see that it has a dependency. Okay, processing formula. If I double click, no, I'm not sure actually. Yeah, so you see machine into operation quantity upon base quantity. So base quantity is 1. Operation quantity, if the planned order quantity is 1, then both will become 1. But if your planned order quantity is 20, so then 20 here, base quantity is 1, and then machine time. So we have got 20 minutes right now. So that's why, so this setup is maintained in the work center. So it's a property of the work center that during the scheduling, and the scheduling formula is different. Okay, so there are two things. One is the capacity consumption. So this is the capacity that planned order is going to consume from the work center, and then this is the scheduling that is going to happen in that work center. So I think I just touched upon what is scheduling. Scheduling is about, so let's say I have a planned order quantity of 20. So based on this formula, I say that machining will require 20 minutes into 20, which means around 6.5 hours. So I know that I need 6.5 hours of capacity on this work center. Okay, so that is known to me. But within a day, my work center starts the day at 8 a.m. and then it finishes at 24 hours. So I have a 16 hours of day. So out of those 16 hours in that day, when is that 6 hours that I want to take? That is the question that scheduling answers. So capacity requirement is that I need 6 hours because I want to produce 20 quantity. So that's my capacity requirement. But then that 6 hours within that day from 8 a.m. to 24 p.m. in this 16 hours, what is that block of 6 hours is defined by, is determined by scheduling. Okay, so that's the purpose of scheduling. Again, there is a formula here, scheduling formula. So we'll see very similar formula is there for scheduling. So scheduling purposes, we will also determine how long I need, 6 hours, 6.5 hours. And then if there is, so there is one more thing that is required, there is split, then it will also try to, so if we need to have 6 hours of scheduling time, and if the split is allowed, then it will find out if, let's say, 2 splits are allowed. So then we can take a block of 3 hours at one time and then 3 hour at other time. So if within a day, if I have 3 hour block and 3 hour block, then we can schedule this planned order. But if there is split is not allowed, then in a day, if only 3 hours blocks are present, then for finite scheduling, we will not be able to schedule that planned order on that day because only 3 hours blocks are present and it needs at in stretch 6 hours of time. Okay, so that's how scheduling plays a role. So I'll take a pause here. Do we have any question in terms of what is capacity requirement and what is scheduling? Good, no question. So I think we all of us understand that scheduling is all about finding out that time slot within a day that when that capacity needs to be consumed from that work center. Okay, so we go back here. Now within this routing, so it says that in order to produce one quantity of that FG, I need to perform these two operations. First operation will be performed in this work center. This work center has 30 minutes of setup, which is fixed, and then 30 minutes of or whatever minutes of machining, which is 20 minutes of machining, which is variable based on this. Similarly, everything is same for the other operation. Just the difference being this is being executed in a different work center. And all those formula that we have seen is also maintained in this work center. And then according to this formula, things will happen. Now with this understanding, now we go to our PPDS PDS and then try to match this, map this, whether this 30 minutes is visible there or not. How does PDS understand what is fixed, what is variable? And before we do that, how does this production version cross over to PPDS? So there is a transaction /n/ Curto create. So does it require SAP APO?
Yeah, yeah.
SAP APO Curto not required. Right? Okay, let's see. Okay. Yeah.
So we can see in production bucket here in master data, you can see the PDS for advanced planning. So this comes under production, not in advanced planning. So here you can see the transaction curve to create. So to transfer the production version from S/4HANA to PPDS.
Correct. Yeah, very nice. So yeah, so once our production version is ready, and as we have seen that production version is also maintained in the MRP4 of my material master. And in the material master, the moment we do a advanced planning tick, the material master goes across. So when the material master goes across, it does not take the production version detail as such. So those production version detail we will have to transfer via this report, this transaction. Okay. So the planning version in APO 000, and we'll see this planning version, etc. We'll go through one document in that we'll talk about this. But at this point, so we are saying that this is the material, this is the plant, and then if this material might have multiple production versions as well. In our case, we have only created one, so that's why this is the one production version. Or else if we have multiple, we can choose out of multiple which we want to send across. Okay, so this is the production version, and then we can say, yeah, we can also say what type of. So it is without subcontracting. So if it is subcontracting type, we will have to tell. So it is right now our simple case is there. Processing modes are there, which is fine. So test mode, you can just test whether things are correct or not. So we can select extended consistency, all that. Okay, delete the PDS. So basically, this is the transaction by which we send across our production version to create a PDS. Okay, no relevant already there. So that's why it is not sending anything. So this is how we send across. Now we go to PPDS, and then I'm just writing a T code to Simo. So otherwise there is a path in the tree, so that also we can see. But shall we go to with the path only? Let's go by the path so that close this one, advanced planning, and PDS, and then display. Okay, so display PDS. Okay, we come here now. So we just open our product, which is 3. Wow, many products are there. 03.
Star 03.
Okay, you expect. Yeah, this material. Very nice. So we'll spend another 10 minutes on this. Very, very important master data within PPDS, obviously along with the work center and product master that we saw. So this is our production data structure. Some of the details which we see here, validity, etc., that has come from the production version that we had. Okay, minimal lot size, maximum lot size. So these has come from the production version data. Then below this is the component. So this is the FG. The first row indicates the FG, so the product itself. Okay, so you see here the output type is master output. So this is our output FG product. And then the second one is our component. So in this FG, we have got one component. So if we go back to the BOM CS03, and then we will see that. So let's go to the BOM. CS03. So we can see in the BOM in S4 that this FG has one component and it needs one quantity only. Okay, so here also we see one quantity, but FG output is 100.
Yeah, base quantity.
Base quantity is 100. Where is that? Okay, in the header. Yeah, so base quantity is 100. Can we change it?
Yeah.
So let's change this quantity and see if it gets reflected there or not. Yeah, make it one.
Transfer.
Yeah.
We can check absolute transfer means all
Absolutely.
the data
Everything
will
will go. Yeah.
successfully transferred.
Right. Yeah, we can see it is very nice. So now we see this output for the FG has become 1 because just now Jay has made it 1 as the output. So this is very clear that within PDS, we have first tab, which is component. Now the details in this component tab is coming from the bill of material of S4. And then these are the fields which are driven from the setup of BOM. Okay. There are more fields here which we can understand more, but for us to proceed further, we have got enough understanding. Now we go to the next one, next tab. This tab is operations. In the routing, we saw that there are two operations. So I will go back to our routing. Okay, we have to open it. Okay, so let's do slash. Okay, so we see here there are two operations, 10 and 20. So similar to that, we have got two operations. Now there is a naming convention that PPDS follows. So the first operation is 0010. So that 10 becomes this, and then 0020, and then there is a 1 and 2, which we'll understand what is that. But then so that operation is appearing like this. This operation validity. So again, operation validity, etc., will be here. I think in the
Right.
header.
Right.
Okay, scroll right or
No.
okay, so yeah, yeah, validity. So 15.6.9999. So all those details. Operation description also comes from there. So very simple. This is how. Okay, this is. Yeah, assembly line and packaging line. Okay, packing line, assembly and packing. So all these things are coming. Now we go to the details. So I'll just click on the first one, first operation. So by clicking on this, we got the details below. So it says this operation has two activity. How does it understand? Because here we have the two activities. One is the setup, another is machining. There is third activity as well, labor, but there is nothing maintained here, so we don't consider that. So these two activities, setup and machining. So that's why within this operation, we have two activity. So you will see one is 1S setup, another is 1P, which is produce. So so the machining here we call it machine, there it is known as produce. Okay, so these are the activity type. Now within this activity, so now I'm going to the details of the activity, and you can stop me wherever you feel disconnected. Okay, so this activity are within this operation. Now I'm going to the first activity, setup. So within that setup activity, I have three tabs. So first one, it says for that operation and that activity will be performed on which resource. So mode is a tab where we see the resource on which it is being performed. So in our routing, we see the work center in the initial stage itself. We see here that the work center is there. But how PDS is structured, we don't see the resource detail in the beginning. We just see the operation, within operation, the activity, and then we see this activity will be performed on the mode where we find out the resource name. So this is the resource name. Okay. And then we see here, it requires 1800 seconds, which is equivalent to 30 minutes, and duration is fixed F. So on this resource, this activity setup will be performed, and it will take 1800 seconds, which is fixed. So irrespective of the quantity of the planned order, it will always take 1800 seconds. And then this is the details of the resource on which this activity is happening. And then this is the capacity requirement. Again, it requires fixed one. I think this will be more for calendar resource. So it is more going to be for SNP. So we'll see this little later. But apart from this, if we leave the capacity requirement part for now, because it can be confusing, we'll cover that as well. But till now, anybody has any question? So we started from the top. So this is the PDS. In that PDS, we had component, which is coming from the BOM. We have operations, and here itself, we can see the activity within these operations. So we had two operations, and in these two operations, we had these activities. So first operation, the 10 operation has set up and produce. This 20 operation also has set up and produce. And then there is a relationship that produce can only happen after setup. So such relationship is end start. So 1P ends and then 2S starts. So once the produce activity of first operation completes, after that only the setup of second will start. Okay. 1S. So first setup of first has to finish, then only the produce of first will start. Okay. So that relationship is there. So we know that within routing, we can have parallel operations. So if there is a parallel operation, then such relationship, if they are parallel, will also appear here. So this is the activity relationship. So PPDS works at the activity level, whereas in our routing, we don't see activity level details over here, but we can see in PPDS the activity level details. So we saw the
can you,
activities.
sorry,
Yeah.
can you go back to that particular screen?
Yeah.
Relationship.
Yeah.
I wanted to know what is the media link, mode linkage type.
The linkage type, where is this?
Resource independent, identical resource.
Okay. So identical resource, which means this first activity and the second activity, both the activity is being performed the same resource. Okay. And here also same resource. So it is 20 operation. So setup of 20 operation and produce of. So that's an identical resource. Here, there are different resources. So 10P happens on the first resource, and then 20S happens on the second resource. So that's why resource independent. Right?
It is not exactly resource independent, but happens on different resources.
Different resources. Yeah, different resources. That's how we can take it. So linkage means there are different resources and these are same resources.
Any other types of linkages exist?
I am not sure. We will check, but it is not going to impact many things in PPDS results. So I think
Okay.
what we understand is good enough for us to proceed.
Okay.
But there can be more. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to just show you one more thing. So let's say let's say look at the details of activities here only. Okay. We can see from there also, here also, doesn't matter. So so we saw the 1S, so setup of the first resource. Now let's do the produce of the first resource. So go into the details of produce of the first resource. So the activity 1P happens on the mode here. So it is mode detail. So it happens on the resource this one. And then the duration is variable. So 1200 is equivalent to 20 minutes. So we have maintained 20 minutes there. So that's why it is showing us 1200 seconds. And then it shows a variable. So the fact that it is showing us variable, it will, when we create the planned order, the capacity need will depend on the planned order quantity. So 1200 seconds will be multiplied by the quantity that we will have. Okay, so it's a dependent variable number. And then capacity requirement, which again looks like one fixed and calendar resource. So this is more, I guess, is SNP relevant. So again, we'll just give it a pass because in our case, when we do the PPDS things, we will see that our capacity requirements will be variable based on the quantity. So we'll just give a pass to this part for now. Okay, anybody has any question? If not, then we'll go back to our routing and make some changes in the duration there, and then we see it reflected.
So in PPDS, duration always shows in second. Okay, it will if you enter in routing, if you enter 30 minute or 30 hour, it will always convert and reflect in second in PPDS.
So initially the APO was sold as some scheduling tool that can plan up to the seconds, right?
Yeah.
That I remember. Yeah.
It could be.
Correct, correct. So even now with PPDS, we can plan up till seconds. That's why in PDS we have everything in seconds.
So I will change it to 30 minutes. Processing time.
And let's make the setup also as 10 minutes.
Yeah, okay. Save it. Transfer.
This product also.
Let's check.
Yeah, very nice. So we can see now the produce time has changed from 1200 seconds to 1800 seconds. And also if we look at the setup time, we made change to 10 minutes. So we can see it is 600 seconds here. So I guess at this point, we are able to visualize what master data we have in S4, which is relevant for PPDS. So I'll just do a recap. So first was the plant. So we send across the plant. We can also create the plant manually in PPDS directly, doesn't matter. The second was material master. So in material master, we did the advanced planning tick and then automatic that comes across. We looked at some of the fields which were updated in S4 and then those field values crosses over to PPDS. Secondly, then we look at the work center. Similar to product master, material master, in the work center, we had that advanced planning and then that comes across to PPDS and makes the resource master. There are multiple setups in work center and that needs little bit more of reading for you to understand all those things. But then there are fields in work center that comes across and then that populates the fields in resource master. And this one, the production version being the combination of BOM and routing, it comes across to PPDS as PDS, and then we saw the linkages and the mapping between the fields of those two master data. Anybody has any question before we proceed to the next topic? Okay, so no question. So now, and also I think we understand, and we'll talk a little bit about this, how when a planned order is being created, then how this 600 second plays a role in determining the capacity consumption scheduling requirement for that planned order. So we'll talk about that when we reach there. But right now, I think from the master data perspective, we are good. So I'll switch back to my PPT now, and then we'll continue to the next topic. Okay, so we'll finish at 12:30, another 20 minutes. So we'll just finish it off by 12:30 so that everything happens in a flow. So coming back to PPT, now I think this slide will probably make more sense. So this is the table where we talk about what are the master data in S4 that are relevant for our PPDS planning, and then they are sent across to PPDS to create these master data. So location master, product master, PDS, and resource master. So these are the master data in PPDS and then the fields, how they are mapped. So we just talked about that. We go to the next one, and this is transaction data integration. So what happens? All the sales orders, all the existing production orders, any manual reservation, any purchase order for the components, any planned order which is fixed in S4 that needs to be respected, and any planned independent requirements or forecasts. So all such relevant transaction data, if any of these or all of these exist in S4, we need to send it across to PPDS so that PPDS during its planning run understands these existing transaction data and then gives the proposal of the planned orders considering all this. Okay, so then obviously they come across to PPDS, and then within PPDS we are able to see this. Now, in terms of transaction data, it's a two-way flow. So the fact that we have these planned orders. So since we don't create sales orders in PPDS as such, so even though it's a two-way flow, there is no sales order going from PPDS to S4. But in case of planned orders, PPDS does create planned orders. So those planned orders which PPDS creates can flow back to S4, and we will be able to see the PPDS created planned orders in MD04 in S4. Okay. Now, should this planned order go immediately? Shall we send the planned orders once in a day? Is a setup that is up to us. We can control that. But if we choose that to happen automatically, instantaneously, then also that can happen. Okay, so this is
Sorry,
one of
Pankaj, one question. Sorry.
Yes.
Planned orders in MD04 can be created by MRP as well as PPDS, right? So how do we differentiate between those two?
No, so you remember this is a decision that we take in the beginning of the project that a particular material, in our case this 03, we choose whether it is being planned by S4 MRP or by PPDS.
No, no,
And
no. I'm saying, I'm asking whether the planned order number that is being generated either by SAP or PPDS has any changes. I mean, the numbers could be same, right? I mean, number any indicator is there in the MD04 so that it has come from PPDS.
Correct. Yeah, the numbers are different. You're right. So when it is created by PPDS, there is a number range that PPDS has its own. So at that time, the planned order number is what PPDS had. And when it gets integrated to MD04, then S4 gives a new number to this planned order. And then that goes back to PPDS and updates that.
And apart from this number range changes, any other indicator that tells me that it has come from PPDS?
If you go to MD04 and double click on that planned order, the created by username is also some system username will be there.
Okay.
Sometimes I don't recollect, but I used to see a star also in front of those planned orders.
Yeah, some star. Yeah, that's what I also recall very faintly. It was long
Correct.
back I worked on this.
So, but I
there is some indicator somewhere.
Yeah, I don't remember if those star were for the S&P planned orders or PPDS, but there are various ways by which we can identify it has come.
Yeah, we can find out. I mean, as we go along, probably.
As we go along, we'll come back to this question once again. Okay. Right. So important thing, master data is one-way flow. It happens. All the master data that we discussed in the previous slide, they will always come from S4 to and they'll sit in PPDS. And then any change that we make in the relevant fields in S4, it will flow across. In case of transaction data, the flow is two-way. However, because there are only few transaction data that PPDS creates, one of them being planned orders, so that is what is going to go back to S4 from PPDS. Rest of them is again because of the nature of the transaction data, it is again one way. Okay. After the integration, changes to the data in the master are filtered and routed on through the active data channel. Stock any change made in transfer automatic to S4 HANA. Any change made in PPDS are so any changes made in PPDS. This sentence is more relevant for planned orders. So transfer automatic to S4 HANA and same applies opposite direction. So and so in the relevant, so for planned orders, any change made in the planned order in PPDS will go back to S4. In all other things, any change made in those data in S4 HANA will reflect into PPDS. So I have a big PDF which I'm going to open now. But before that, I had one slide I just wanted to touch upon. This there is a guidance as to a consulting guidance as to when we implement PPDS, how do we decide out of the entire list of products, which product should be planned in PPDS and which we should not. Okay, a very rough guideline is given in this table. Is that when we have a product which is externally procured, so for example, those components which are having a long lead time in procurement, so those components will obviously be part of the bill of material of one of the FGs, and hence we should try to plan those components in PPDS. So that's how we choose. Even though my FG might have 3-4 components, we don't necessarily want to plan all those 4 components in PPDS. Out of those 4 components, we can choose to plan only 1 or 2 components which are having the long lead time. Rest of the 2 components can still be planned in S4 via with using MRP. And how this works, we'll talk when we look at the planning results, and at that point in time we can cover on this topic as well. But as a guidance, long lead time components should be planned in PPDS. Then in-house produced bottleneck resource. So even in terms of FGs, so my company can have, let's say, 1000 FGs, but then out of those 1000 FGs, there are 100 FGs which are produced on a lathe machine, which is a bottleneck. So then the proper or optimal scheduling of this lathe machine is the purpose which I want to achieve, because that's a bottleneck. So I will just do the production planning PPDS for only those 100 FGs, because those are the 100 FGs that loads or that consumes the capacity of the lathe, which is a bottleneck. So I have more shaping machine, packaging machines in my shop floor, but then I have enough capacity there. So there is no need to do detailed scheduling and detailed planning of those. And hence those products, those FGs, which are only consuming the capacity of packaging and shaping machine, because I have enough capacity, I don't need to do detailed planning, and hence I will not take it over to PPDS. So bottleneck resources is the driving criteria in selecting the materials that needs to be planned in PPDS. Okay, and then rest of the things are kind of reorder point planning things are not required. So, but important was to understand what we should take over to PPDS. Okay. Now coming back to this PPT and this PDF. Now, I don't remember from where I got this PDF, so it might be already available in Google somewhere. But quickly in next 10-15 minutes, we are going to go through this document and see everything that we talked about. It's all that the same thing is going to be discussed again. Okay, so quickly I'm going to go through. So MRP dispatcher we didn't talk about. Integration of ECC in APO is not relevant for our discussion. So we move. Question 3 is fine. APO is fine. Point number 5. So this is it's majorly going to be a recap of what we discussed, and we'll just quickly go through this. And this document can be a reference when you try to do something on your own. Okay, so scheduling is performed resource. So this is a view where plant, customer, supplier makes a location, material becomes product, work center and its capacity becomes resource, and then production version becomes PDS. Very simple. We talked about this in detail. I just make it a little bit bigger. Point number 6 is integrating the location. So this is again, we saw the SIF integration we need to do only for plant. So we just saw in Jay showed us in our system that in order to send across the plant, we can do SIF. So CFM1 and CFM2. The other alternative is that we can directly create the plant, because we don't make changes in plant very frequently. So it can happen directly. We can create it. So this is the integration of plant. Integration of products and work centers. So it is showing us that how a material master has an advanced planning checkbox within the advanced planning tab. And then similarly in the work center, we have an advanced planning checkbox. The moment these two are checked and saved, it flows across to PPDS. So that's the integration of material and work center. You can also see the sequence. So first was to send across your location. Second is to send across your material and work center. And then it kind of talks about when the work center goes, the naming convention has a W gets added. So you see here the work center naming is 1904 and a W gets added in front of that when it becomes a resource. Then it has a capacity category of 001. So that becomes the capacity. So the name of the resource indicates 2-3 things. One is the work center name. Second, underscore is after the underscore is the plant name, and then third is the capacity category. So that's how the resources are named in PPDS. Then production data structure. We have seen and we have observed that the routing and BOM has one structure in S4. But when it comes across and then creates the production data structure, we have seen the structure that first of all, you see the PDS name. Within that, we have 4 tabs. One is the component, which is where you have BOM details. And then you have the operation detail. So you don't see the name of work center yet. But when you go inside the operation, you see what are the activities on that operation. And then within the activity, we see that this activity is related to this work center or resource, and then what is the fixed consumption of time and variable consumption. So that's how this diagram shows us that this is the structure in which we can understand the PDS. So our production version is created as PDS, and then PDS has operation, and within that activity, and then there is a relation between activity and modes, and then capacity and all that. Okay. How to send across the PDS? Obviously, we saw how do we do that, and there is a transaction detail here also. You can just refer this. Planning methods. We'll talk about it later, so we'll just pass it for now. The planning methods. Objective of PPDS. Obviously, kind of in the beginning of the session today, we talked that the objective of PPDS is to do a production planning which can include which can understand the components availability as well as capacity availability. So two things that you just need to keep in mind, that if I want to do a production planning which should be cognizant of the fact that I have a shortage of material or I have a shortage of capacity, and then it should give my planned orders in such a way that it understands how much component and how much capacity I has. Then that is the objective of PPDS, that having a production plan which understand the constraints of material and capacity. Okay, so that's the objective of PPDS. Then obviously capacity of the bottleneck resource and all that definition is there. So you can go through this. We move on. Advantages, etc. We'll see. Functionality of product view. Okay, all these things I think an alert monitor. So in the next session, we are going to go into the details of this. But for this document, this is enough. I am going to go back to these PDFs and just take a look at this. So I'm going to go to the SIF setup for now. OK, so in the SIF setup, which is 51. So let's open this. So this documents tells us about that within SPRO in S4, we can go to advanced planning, basic settings, and then there we have some check boxes. Activate advanced planning and scheduling. Okay, so once we do the live cache installation, after that we need to do this setup in SPRO, which will enable the PPDS to work. So live cache is fundamentally the most important thing to start the PPDS, but then post that, even for our S4 things, we do the SPRO setup. So similarly, there are some setup in SPRO, which is what is mentioned in this document. So you can go through this and then you can see what are the other things. So you remember when I did the CFM1, at that time logical system name etc. was to be selected. So in this SAP note, you will see how to create those logical system and all that. So that's that. And then the next one is PPDS implementation recommendation, which is 87. So I just open this and then we'll take a look at some of these things. So the very first thing that this note has is basic manual setting needed for set up the PPD and setting up the integrated live cache. Okay, and that is where this SAP note has been given. So live cache setup needs to happen. And then once the setup is done, then it talks about creating the model and version. So we have not seen this in little detail, but we can see this tomorrow as a first thing, that how do we create a model and how do we create a version. And whenever the transfer happens from S4 and it crosses over to PPDS, the live model is 000 and live version is 000. That automatically gets associated to the master data, product master, work centers, etc. That. So these are the details. Some of these details are mentioned here. So if time permits today, you can just go through this setup of and activation of locations, etc. So again, it talks a little bit about how we send across the master data from S4 to PPDS, but they are more technical in nature. So probably you just go through this. If it sounds more technical, you can just go across. There is a transfer setup. So I kind of talked about if a planned order is created in PPDS and want to send across to S4, so it can be immediate, it can be periodic. So those setups are also where to control that. So CFC9 is a different transaction, but there is a, I think C5 is another transaction, which is where we perform that setup, whether it has to be immediate or periodic. C5, SAP APO C5. Let's see that. So those details are kind of mentioned in this SAP note. So I think for today we covered probably what you want to do. So business context, this process flow we talked about, the initial setup we just saw, high level details of these SAP notes we just talked about. Master data integration we have seen in larger depth, and then transaction data. Again, this setup is there in SPRO. In one of those notes, you will see where in SPRO we can see this setup. Maybe we can just and then we followed this PDF to see whatever we covered today. Tomorrow onwards, we will first see the model version setup of PPDS, and then from there we'll go into the details of production planning using PPDS, and then details scheduling part of this. Okay.
Pankaj, one question
Yeah.
here. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, is it possible to? I think now it is possible to have PPDS as a standalone application for a sidecar deployment, right?
Yeah. Yes, it's a separate license.
Yeah, it's a separate license, but
Okay.
I don't know if a company wants to only use PPDS without S4, will that happen or not? I don't think
No,
so.
maybe assume there are multiple plants. So for not all the
Multiple
plants
plants.
are multiple plants. Not all of the plants are using manufacturing. So in that case, probably that makes sense, right? I just
Yeah, correct.
saying.
Correct. So, or if not all the plants use manufacturing, then whatever plant has manufacturing, only those plants we will send across to PPDS, and we can do it with those that will become location, and then we can run PPDS.
Yeah, because this particular implementation, I mean, enhancement was supposed to come into 2021 release. I don't know if it has come across.
Okay.
We'll check it out. I will check it out.
Okay, sure. Anybody has any other question? Okay, if not any other question, then any feedback on how we have conducted today's session, if it was making, if you were able to understand it, if you want something different, something to be told differently than what we did today. Silence means everything was good.
Yes, it was good.
Okay, very nice.
Yeah,
All right.
Pankaj, one more thing. Sorry, one more thing is I think there was a checkbox when you activate PPDS. So I think that we missed, right?
Okay, so we can see that maybe Jay will.
Because no. Because why I remember it is in one of our implementations, we implemented this 1610. We implemented PPDS, and the checkbox was ticked on, and we went ahead with some sample data, and then the client decided that he didn't want this PPDS stuff.
Okay,
Standard.
we'll just,
Yes. And then then the question was whether to remove the checkbox or not. And then we escalated. We were also not aware of this, and then we escalated it to SAP. And basically, SAP said it is a consulting issue, pays money. So client was not willing to pay, and we just left it as it is. When we completed the implementation, the checkbox was still on, but we really didn't know what would have happened if we removed that particular checkbox. That's how I remember it. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go into SPRO and let's see if that's the same checkbox that you are talking about. So Jay will take us to that SPRO setting. Okay, let's find out. Okay. The SPRO.
Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So
should be activate PPDS
SPRO
something.
setting. Yeah. Okay. Yes. So here also, as we see in the logistic, here also we can have the separate component advanced planning in SPRO also. Okay. So we have a different configuration setting in advanced planning. So we'll go one by one. Basic setting. So this is the setting where we should activate the advanced plan.
This is required.
Yeah. So
yes,
here
this
you
is
can
what
remove. You can remove or you can activate. Okay.
So this is required
So you
for
can see.
PPDS to work.
This is the first step required, which needs to select this advanced planning setting to run the PPDS. Okay. I will not save.
Then settings for data transfer.
Yeah. So the setting of data transfer. So what are the different data we need to exchange from
Transaction
PPDS?
data.
Yeah, transaction data, which needs to exchange from PPDS to S4HANA and S4HANA to PPDS. So we
Okay.
can see the stocks, sales order, plan independent requirement, plan order. So if you don't want to exchange the data, for say example, the scheduling agreement, so we can untick it and it will not transfer from S4HANA to PPDS and PPDS to S4HANA. So this is for the transactional data, not a master data.
There is a number range probably somewhere.
Yeah. Global setting. Yeah. Number.
Yeah. Right. So this one, so whenever PPDS will generate the planned order, then probably these numbers will be used. If you order as it says.
Yeah.
And then we have our PP number range somewhere else maintained. So those number will be used when the planned order gets integrated and comes to MD04. Then we'll get that other number range. So yeah, so so we understand. During the session, we did not go into details of everything, but as we are talking now, that there are few setups that we need to perform in SPRO, and all those SAP notes that we saw in those SAP notes, these has been mentioned. So whenever you have some time, you can just go through it and understand the details. But for us to be able to go to the next session, I think we touched upon all the relevant fields and points so that we will be able to understand the next session topics. Okay.
That should be fine.
All right. So I think then we are good for today. What we will do, we will send across this PPT and SAP notes to all of us. And then if possible, have some time and try to go through this, and then we'll have the next session on Wednesday, same time.
Wednesday on 16th, on same time.
Yeah, sure.
All
Oh,
right.
not tomorrow?
Thank you.
Yeah, Girish.
Not tomorrow?
Not tomorrow, day after tomorrow. I think you
Okay.
must have received invitation for
Yes.
this.
Yeah, I saw that. I
Yes,
thought it
yes,
was
yes.
anyway. I thought it was every day for 3 days or something like that. No,
We
I
are
assumed.
taking it little. We are taking it little slow so that it
Yeah,
gives
that's
time
fine.
for us to,
Yes,
to
understand.
just go through it once more. Yeah.
So we can conclude today's session. So we'll meet again day after tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you
Everyone.
both. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.